Good evening, everybody. The time is 6:15 p.m. Today is Tuesday, September 26, 2023. I'd like to call to order this special closed session meeting for the City Council and Management of Emeryville Services Authority. This meeting is being conducted in a hybrid format. We're located at 1333 Park Avenue in Emeryville, California. If you'd like to join us remotely via Zoom, you can do that using the link provided on today's agenda. Members of the public will have the opportunity to comment on all items on the agenda today, and you can give that comment either in person, virtually, or by submitting an electronic speaker card to the clerk using the link provided on the city's website and on the agenda. This time I'll ask if the clerk would please take the roll.
Councilmember Carr.
Present.
Councilmember Mora.
Present.
Councilmember Pryforce.
Here.
Vice Mayor Welch.
Here.
And Mayor Bowders.
Here, thank you. Are there any ex parte communications for the closed session agenda to report? Seeing and hearing none, now is the time for public comment. A member of the public wishing to give comment for the closed session items will have 2 minutes to give comment. There are no members presenting at present. There's no hands raised online. Did you receive any written comments for this meeting?
No, Mayor.
Thank you. Public comment is closed. We'll turn to item 5 and 6, which are the closed session portions of this meeting. Madam Clerk, the time is 6:16. We will adjourn to closed session and report out when we've concluded the meeting. 6:47, we've returned from the closed session. I'd like to invite City Attorney John Kennedy to report out of closed session.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In closed session, I'm reporting out that the claim of William James Roslin, it's number 6.1.4, on a motion that was made by Vice Mayor Welch that was seconded by Councilmember Mora to approve payment in the amount of $3,469.25 to Mr. Roslin for property damage due to his vehicle being hit by a Emeryville Police Department vehicle. That motion was approved by a vote of 5-0. Other than that, there are no other reportable actions that were taken.
To clarify, Mr. City Attorney, on item 6.1.1, the claim was denied on a motion
Correct.
5-0, correct?
Correct.
Would you like to read the other claim outcomes, please?
Sure. On 6.1.1, on a vote of 5-0, that claim was denied. On 6.1.2, the claim of Michael Kilovidakis, that claim was denied. On 6.1.3, the claim of Therese Williams, on a vote of 5-0, that claim was denied. And the claim of Kevin Franklin, 6.1.5, on a vote of 5-0, that claim was also denied.
Okay, thank you. And on item 5, there's no reportable action this evening. Madam Clerk, the time is 6:49. This closed session is adjourned.
Recording stopped.
Time is 7:15 p.m., and I'd like to call to order this meeting of the City of Emeryville as the successor agency to the Emeryville Redevelopment Agency special meeting. This meeting is being conducted in a hybrid format. We're located at 1333 Park Avenue here at Emeryville City Hall. Members of the public may also participate online using the link provided for in today's agenda. Public comment may be provided in person, virtually, or by submitting an electronic speaker card to the clerk using the link provided for in the agenda or on the city's website in advance of this meeting. This time I'll ask if the clerk would please take the roll.
Councilmember Carr.
Present.
Councilmember Mora. Here. Councilmember Pryforce.
Here.
Vice Mayor Welch.
Here.
And Mayor Bowders.
Here, at this time I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda for this meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Motion by Carr, second by Mora to approve agenda. Please call the roll.
Councilmember Carr.
Aye.
Councilmember Mora.
Aye.
Councilmember Pryforce.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Welch.
Aye.
And Mayor Bowders.
Aye. Are there any ex parte communications for the redevelopment meeting? Seeing and hearing none, now is the time for public comment. A member of the public who wishes to comment for an item on the redevelopment agenda or not on the agenda will have 2 minutes to do so. There's no people looking to be present here for that meeting. Are there any members of the public online? Seeing and hearing none, public comment is closed. I'll turn to the consent calendar. Is there any discussion on the consent calendar? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I move approval of the consent calendar.
I second.
Thank you. Motion by Welch, second by Mora to approve items 6.1 and 6.2. Please call the roll.
Councilmember Carr.
Aye.
Councilmember Mora.
Aye.
Councilmember Pryforce.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Welch.
Aye.
And Mayor Bowders.
Aye. Madam Clerk, the time is 7:16 p.m. The meeting is adjourned. Madam Clerk, the time is 7:16 p.m. I call to order this amended and special meeting of the Emeryville City Council on today, Tuesday, September 26, 2023. This meeting, as has been noted, is in hybrid format, and members of the public can participate by joining us via Zoom. Madam Clerk, please note in the minutes that all members remain present. At this time, I'll entertain a motion to approve this agenda.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Thank you. A motion by Mora, second by Carr to approve the agenda. Please call the roll.
Councilmember Carr.
Present. Sorry, aye.
Councilmember Mora.
Aye.
Councilmember Pryforce.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Welch.
Aye.
And Mayor Bowders.
Aye, thank you. We have one special order of the day. Item 4.1 is a proclamation of the City Council of the City of Emeryville proclaiming September 2023 as Suicide Prevention Awareness Month. Whereas September is National Suicide Prevention Awareness Month, which is intended to help promote awareness surrounding each of the suicide prevention resources available to us in our communities, with the simple goal of learning how to help those around us and how to talk about suicide without increasing the risk of harm. And whereas suicidal thoughts can affect anyone regardless of their age, gender, race, orientation, income level, religion, or background. And whereas according to the Centers for Disease Control, each year more than 41,000 people die by suicide in the United States. And whereas suicide is the 10th leading cause of death among adults in the United States and the second leading cause of death among people between the ages of 10 and 24. And whereas the City of Emeryville lends its full support as a partner to local educators, mental health professionals, coaches, law enforcement, and parents in their effort to build a supportive community that makes itself available to all of its members. And whereas local organizations such as Suicide Prevention Services and national organizations such as the National Alliance on Mental Illness are on the front lines of a battle that many still refuse to discuss in public, as suicide and mental illness remain taboo subjects. And whereas all residents are encouraged to take the time to check in with their family, their friends, and their neighbors over the next few days with something as simple as a phone call, a message, a handshake, or a hug, any of which may go a long way toward helping someone realize that suicide is not the answer now or ever. Now therefore be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Emeryville that the month of September 2023 is proclaimed National Suicide Prevention Month in the City of Emeryville, and that the city encourages everyone to act with kindness towards others, be it a family member, a friend, or a stranger, using whatever means make them most comfortable. Proclaimed by the Mayor of and the City Council today at a regular meeting, September 26, 2023. Does anyone wish to give comments on that? Okay. We'll turn to item 5, which is announcements of commission and committee vacancies. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor and Council, wanted to let you know that Beth Rosales resigned from the Commission on Aging. We were able to add her to her position to the current recruitment that is open. That is open until October 16th, closes at 5 p.m. So we're accepting applications for that and other committees.
Thank you. So if you're a member of the public and you'd like to become more involved in your local government, one of the best ways to do that is to join one of our resident advisory committees. And as the clerk noted, we have a number of available positions open. You can go to the city's website and click on the link on the left side for local commissions and committees, and there you'll be able to find a listing of available open spots and the call for applications. Item 6 is council member special announcements or reports on meetings that they were in attendance at. Is there anybody here who wishes to report an item? Over here, Member Pryforce.
Yes, I attended the League of Cities in Sacramento, and it was a great experience. One of the big topics came from a discussion around mental health, and that cities are obtaining vendors to address mental health services. And so I thought that was a very interesting thing that I will eventually, once I get more information, bring before this body. Yeah, I think that's about it. And I will probably make a mention during a future agenda item about our admittance to the National League of Cities. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else? No? The city manager's report.
Nothing to report, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, city manager's report is waived. Ex parte communications. Are there any members here who wish to report an ex parte communication they had with a party related to an item on the agenda this evening? Seeing none. Member Pryforce.
I had a discussion with, text message between Eugene Sway and I about the item related to the code of ethics.
Okay. Anyone else? All right, seeing none. Item 9 is public comment for items not on the agenda this evening or the consent agenda. A member of the public who wishes to comment for any items under Section 10, which is the consent agenda, or an item not on the agenda this evening, will have 2 minutes to give comment. Is there anybody here? Mr. Carpio, would you like to come and give comment? Do your best to pull the microphone down. Pull the microphone down. There you go. Thank you.
It's okay, thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is André Carpio, and I'm sure, perhaps or not, some of you may not be aware, but I'm completely homeless, there is a poor and a poor. But the majority of people do not agree to put an old man, 89-year-old, on the street and destroying his home. It's something that's never been unheard in Europe and even in Russia. And so my family and my friend are very concerned about the, I don't want to say the grade, but the level of humanity that those who decided to destroy my home, if they had any feeling about the old man that they were putting on the street. And so, of course, I'm going to file a grievance, and that would be also subject to an action in court if the grievance cannot be resolved at the council level. And this is a very bad experience. And those who are not aware of being homeless, all you need to do is go down on Telegraph and area of the street. But there is none of my age homeless. And none of them have been homeless by the system, they call it, or the city, or whatever, that went and destroy a complete home, and just for there is several versions, but one of them is vengeance. So I'm just warning you, City Council, people, that I'm preparing a brief, and I want you to read it carefully and consider the human side of it. I lost, as a consequence, my my son who just couldn't put up having lost his inheritance.
Thank you, Mr. Carpio.
Thank you.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you for being so called. Bye.
You're welcome. Any other members present who wish to comment on a non-agenda item? Recognize Brian Donahue in the attendance online, please, for 2 minutes. Good evening.
I would like somebody to acknowledge, I just came here. Is this the regular council meeting or is this a special meeting?
This is the council meeting, yes.
The regular council meeting?
Yes.
Yeah, I would like everyone to note how the mayor allowed the previous speaker to speak beyond his 2 minutes. That being the case, you have to treat everyone fairly and equally. First thing I would like to say is we have an employee at the police department, and her name is Letitia Moore. She's one of our employees, and she is discourteous and disrespectful to the public. She's paid to be courteous and respectful, but she doesn't do it. And how do I know this? Because I'm just the messenger here. I get this information from the chief of police, Jeff Jennings, and it's not his opinion that his employee, Letitia Moore, is discourteous and unprofessional to the public, and rather it is his finding of fact. 323.5.6 subsection F, professional standards. It's in their police manual. They have to be professional and courteous. And this employee, Letitia Moore, has fallen short. We pay these people top dollar, and what we expect is nothing short of excellence from our police department. And this employee, Letitia Moore, did not deliver on the excellence. So says our chief of police. Now on to quickly, everyone should know that the Emeryville City Council will be considering soon whether or not to spend over $100,000 on license plate reading cameras from a corporation called Flock Safety, who's in the business of providing license plate readers to municipalities. This council should not do it. All the corporate claims are false. I've been checking into it. Does not improve safety, and it's an expensive boondoggle. And I expect this council to do your due diligence and protect our money, our resources, and don't believe corporate lies. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other members of the public who wish to comment for an item not on the agenda or on the consent calendar? Did we receive any written comments for that?
Yes, Mayor, we did.
Thank you. Please read.
This is from, sorry about the pronunciation, Yale Neglar. For the 4 years I've lived at Liquid Sugar Drive, we have been watching from our balcony in horror as giant branches have fallen directly onto the bike path. The branches are rarely pruned and snap quietly and quickly. This morning, my mother was walking with my infant son and a giant branch fell a few feet in front of her. She narrowly missed it and narrowly survived. This incident could have easily killed her and my son. We have made an effort to inform the city of Emeryville, and our requests have been ignored. The city only shows up after branches have fallen. Why is the city not taking the safety of its residents seriously? This is an egregious violation of public health and safety.
Are there any other comments?
No.
Public comment being closed, I'll actually turn to the Public Works Director and the City Manager. My understanding is that we received this complaint related to the last public speaker several days ago, and that the same day we received it, Public Works went out, met with the resident about that complaint, and actually the following day brought the city arborist out who conducted a tree study on the condition of the trees along the greenway and has submitted a report, and there will be pruning done of certain trees and the removal of one tree. Is that correct?
That's correct, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. So to the members of the public, thank you to the staff for being responsive the same day to the request from the members of the community. Public comment is closed. We'll turn to the consent agenda. Items 10.1 through 10.5 are before you for consent. Are there any members on the council who wish to pull an item for discussion or to discuss further? Okay, seeing and hearing none, I'll entertain a motion on items 10.1 through 10.5.
I move approval of the consent calendar.
I second.
Thank you. There's a motion by Welch and a second by Mora to approve items 10.1 through 10.5 inclusive. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilmember Carr?
Aye.
Councilmember Mora?
Aye.
Councilmember Pryforce?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Welch.
Aye.
Mayor Bowders.
Aye, thank you. There are no public hearings on the agenda tonight. That takes us to item 12, which is our action items. Item 12.1 is a resolution of the City Council of the City of Emeryville adopting a code of ethics and conduct for elected and appointed city officials, presented tonight by John Kennedy, City Attorney. Good evening, Mr. Kennedy.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, Mayor Bowders and members of the City Council. We have a PowerPoint that we're going to be walking through regarding the proposed Emeryville Code of Ethics and Conduct. Next slide, please. Should hit this.
Yeah, it's okay. I'm going to move this down so it's not up here.
Okay.
No, you won't touch it. Sorry about that.
Okay, I won't touch it. To begin with, the City Attorney's Office was asked to provide guidance and examples from other local jurisdictions to the Budget and Governance Committee for the possible adoption by the City Council of a Code of Ethics and Conduct for elected and appointed city officials, which would govern council members and advisory body members' actions and conduct, as well as provide a process for ensuring compliance and enforcement. Next slide, please. Committee members requested, following their review, that the City of Barstow Code of Ethics and Conduct be used as a model for the draft policy. The draft policy that we've presented to you tonight applies to members of the City Council and boards, committees, and commissions. The draft policy refers to each individual as a member and individuals collectively as members, except where specific officials are addressed. Next slide, please. The draft policy also is divided into two sections. The first section contains both a code of ethics that all members are obligated to follow and a code of conduct that describes the manner in which members should treat one another, city staff, constituents, and others they come into contact with while representing the City of Emeryville. The second section in the policy establishes sanctions for violations by members. Next slide, please. With respect to the Code of Ethics, members are required to act in the public interest, comply with all applicable laws, conduct themselves in an appropriate manner at public meetings and with other members, staff, and the public, respect the decision-making process, avoid conflicts of interest, respect the confidentiality of information provided by staff and the City Attorney's Office, and adhere to other ethical requirements as set forth in the policy. Next slide, please. With respect to the Code of Conduct, members are required to treat each other with respect, exhibit appropriate behavior at all times, comply with all applicable laws, conduct themselves in an appropriate manner at public meetings and with other members, staff, and the public as set forth in the policy, and council member conduct with respect to interacting with board, committee, and commission members is prescribed in that policy. Next slide, please. Members, for under the section sanctions for violations of the Code of Ethics and Conduct, which is the second part of the policy, members have the responsibility to ensure that ethical standards are understood and met. The chairs of board, committees, and commissions and the mayor have the additional responsibility to intervene when a member's actions appear to violate the Code of Ethics and Conduct, and the City Council may impose sanctions on members whose conduct does not comply with the Code of Ethics and Conduct. Such sanctions can include reprimand, formal censure, and loss of seniority, including the offices of mayor and vice mayor or committee assignments. Next slide, please. In addition, the City Council may remove members of boards, committees, and commissions from office for violations of the Code of Ethics and Conduct or applicable state law requirements. Council members, however, may only be removed from office by voter recall. Members are also required to sign an acknowledgement that they have read and understand the Code of Ethics and Conduct and agree to comply fully with state and local requirements and conduct themselves in accordance with the Code of Ethics and Conduct. No member may disclose confidential information unless the city, acting through the city council or city manager, authorizes disclosure. Finally, ethical standards will be included in any regular orientations for candidates for city council and applicants to boards, committees, and commissions, and for new members. Next slide, please. Now, this section discusses the process by which complaints may be brought against members for violation of the Code of Ethics and Conduct. With respect to council members, any council member who wishes to bring a formal complaint against another council member may request a future agenda item at a noticed public city council meeting, and upon receiving majority support of the council, an agenda item shall be placed on a future noticed public council meeting to discuss the complaint. If placed on a future notice council meeting, the council member bringing the complaint shall submit to the city attorney the factual allegations and relief requested within 10 days. The council member against whom the complaint was filed shall be afforded notice of any proposed action to be taken by the council and an opportunity to refute the allegations presented. Any discipline imposed by the council shall be determined by a majority vote of at least a quorum of council members at the meeting. Next slide, please. With respect to members of boards, commissions, and committees, any council member who wishes to bring a formal complaint against a board, committee, or commission member may request a future agenda item at a noticed public city council meeting, and upon receiving majority support of the council, an agenda item shall be placed on a future noticed public council meeting to discuss the complaint. The board, committee, or commission member against whom the complaint was filed shall be afforded notice of any proposed action to be taken by the council and an opportunity to refute the allegations presented. Any discipline imposed by the council shall be determined by a majority vote of at least a quorum of council members at the meeting. If warranted, a majority of the council may also call for an investigation of a board, committee, or commission member's conduct as a future agenda item at a noticed public council meeting. In addition, if the city manager or city attorney believes that an investigation is warranted, they shall confer with the mayor or council as necessary. The mayor or council may ask the city manager to investigate the allegation and report the findings at a future noticed public council meeting. That is all for my presentation at this time. I'm happy to answer any questions. I know that's a lot of information to digest.
Okay, before we call for public comment, are there any questions from members about the document or the presentation? Member Pryforce?
At the end, it says if the mayor or council, is that legalese or like that? It's that the mayor or the council, or mayor or council as the mayor is a part of the council?
This is in terms of the investigation. It's confer with the mayor or council as necessary. So part of any time we go into closed session, it could be with the city council. It depends on the situation. So it could be that the city manager and city attorney are informed of something serious, of a serious nature, and we would inform the mayor, or we could inform the council. That would be at our discretion.
Okay, I think that's one of the reasons why I've been pushing for a code of ethics, is to flatten that, where you say it's up to your discretion, that what the mayor knows the council should know, and vice versa. I remember when I first decided to run, the previous acting city manager told me that the mayor is just You know, it's just a member of the city council member. You know, there's no difference. And one of the reasons why I've been pushing for the code of ethics is because I have seen time and time again where that is false. And so, so I understand the discretion part. I disagree that it should be the mayor and city council, not the mayor or the city council. Because what if the issue in and of itself is about the mayor, and the mayor has an outsized influence over the city attorney and the city manager, and thus, in terms of outrooting corruption, it would be good for the mayor and the city council to both know what is going on. So, so in that sense, there shouldn't be a separation of knowledge. Thanks.
I just want to point out that this procedure applies to members of boards, committees, or commissions. That's the process. It's a different process for allegations against council members. There is no process for the city manager or the city attorney to bring an issue to the mayor or the council under the procedure that I'm just set forward for council members. This procedure only applies to members of boards, committees, or commissions. It's a slightly different procedure. Again, we were asked to use the city of Barstow as a model. You can have a similar procedure with respect to investigations of council members, or you could eliminate this procedure with respect to members of boards, committee, or commissions. That's a policy call for the city council to make.
Do you have further questions? Vice Mayor Welch.
Oh, Mr. City Attorney had made the point that what I was trying to get the gist of, that this isn't excluding anyone. It could be if perhaps the mayor is the one being investigated, or it's another council member bringing something against the mayor. So it's not necessarily going to include the mayor initially, correct?
Well, again, there are two different processes. One, for council members, the process is in a public setting. So for council members, a council member needs to bring a formal complaint at a city council meeting against another member of the city council. And then there's a process by which that moves forward. For members of boards, committees, and commissions, we have a separate process, and that is if the city manager or the city attorney believes that an investigation is warranted, we can bring that to the attention of the mayor or the city council. We can change that if you would like. That's within the discretion of the city council, but we were asked to model it based on the city of Barstow's policy.
Others who have clarifying questions? Councilmember Mora.
So it seems like with this this clause that relates to committee members, members of boards, it's almost like this is outside. Like, you know, maybe they should have their own code of ethics. So I could see possibly either removing that section D, or alternatively, I would also support conferring with, where it says mayor or city council as warranted. It could just be confer with city council as warranted. I could go either way.
I want to stay out of the discussion until we've heard from the public. Is there a question that somebody has? Do you have a question?
I don't. I was just going to go ahead and make a comment if I can.
Let's wait for the public to comment, and then we'll
Sure.
take comments after that. The public has a right to speak on this item too. Are there any questions for the city attorney? Okay, I will call for public comment. Are there members of the public who wish to comment on item 12.1? I see one person approaching present, and I see hands online. So we will take the in-person speaker for 2 minutes first, please. Good evening. You have 2 minutes to give comment.
Hello, I am Sam Gould, a member of the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee, but today I'm here to speak about my own experiences. I moved to Emeryville 9 months ago because I sincerely believed in its mission of being a leading example in housing and transportation. I was excited by the prospects of a city that can actually get stuff done, and inspired to become engaged in city politics because I too believe that, in the Vice Mayor's words, Emeryville is a place for everybody. Since I started, I was shown a great amount of support by the many amazing members of staff and the council. But I was also shown a great deal of hostility. By one sitting council member, I've been called a troll, had my application for BPAC criticized as being piss poor, had them attempt to intimidate my committee into changing my behavior, and made to feel unwelcome. I really do care about this city, and I also care about getting more people involved. But how can we expect the average people to become engaged when their comments are dismissed, ridiculed, or laughed at while they speak, and when those that move here are antagonized and attacked? I will admit that I am quite passionate, but for my own well-being, I have since ceased responding to that council member. However, I wanted to come out here today to put my support behind this code of ethics, since I believe it will help lead to an environment of accountability, transparency, and respect, and help increase our engagement among our constituency.
Thank you for your comment. Are there any other members present who wish to give comment? Okay, Madam Clerk, I'd like to recognize Brian Donahue, please, for 2 minutes.
Yeah, first I'd like to say I've lived in Emeryville for 43 years, and I've noticed that the public comment sections continually shrink. When I first moved here, it was a 5-minute, your speakers were allowed 5 minutes. Then that was reduced to 3 minutes by then Councilmember Nora Davis, now Mayor Davis, now it's Mayor Bowders has reduced it down to 2 minutes. So I don't see any compelling reason why it should be continually being reduced. I would like the mayor to address this at some point. Now, regarding the code of ethics, I listened to the presentation, and I will say the first section regarding not the council members, but the boards and commissions and what have you, I read that, and I know the government at City Hall in Emeryville quite well, and it was frightening to hear the words from the city attorney, because I can just see this city weaponizing this new code of conduct to quash free speech rights. I could just see that happening. So, anybody that is in favor of free speech rights, and I know that of at least 2 council members that are, I think you should look closely at this and make sure that there are safeguards in there so the citizens can maintain their free speech rights. And then the second part about the council, we've been waiting for this for more than a year. I wish we'd had this earlier because council members that are sitting in these chairs right now, like viciously attacking council member Pryforce. I mean, just like shameless and horrible attacks against them. And so had this law been in place at the time, we could have done something about that. So, we voted for council member Pryforce, and it's really concerning to see in his first meeting, his fellow colleagues, new colleagues attacking him like that. And so, I wish this law had been in place earlier, at least with the council members. So,
Thank you for your comment.
Wait a minute. Hello?
Thank you for your comment. Do we have any other
You have to let
speakers?
people speak fairly and equitably.
Yeah, so you got 2 minutes like everybody else did. Is there any other member of the public who wishes to comment for this item? Madam Clerk, did you get a written comment?
I did. I have one online.
Okay.
Emeryville City Council. I'm encouraged by the steps being taken toward holding elected and appointed officials accountable within Emeryville. Unfortunately, the language in the proposed resolution lacks teeth and impartiality and appears to put most of the power in the hands of the mayor and city manager for handling internal disputes. As the editor of Emeryville's longest-running online news source and frequent critic, it should not come as a surprise that I've experienced personal retaliation by city council members. Council members are human and subject to bias and emotion-based decisions. When this happened previously, and I inquired with the then city manager, Carolyn Lair, I learned there was no internal independent process to investigate and hold council members accountable when they overstep their boundaries. See email below from November 10th, 2017. I would encourage the city to take this proposed resolution a step further and implement an independent ethics commission or similar to empower residents and whistleblowers to hold the city and its elected officials accountable. This body, through the Public Records Act, would be responsible for investigating improprieties by council and staff and provide needed checks and balances in local government. Thank you for your consideration. Robert Aris.
Do you have any other written comments?
No, Mayor.
Okay, public comment is now closed, and we'll turn to council members for discussion. Recognize Councilmember Carr.
Thank you, Mayor. I was going to be in agreement with Council Member Moore's suggestion that the language in D just be changed to council members. If that is not objectionable, or I think it's just very equitable to change it to that. And that's just my comment on this.
Okay. Others who have comments? Councilmember Pryforce?
So one of the reasons why I have been pushing the code of ethics, and in response to the other comment that was made, so that was me. I spoke against Sam Gould, who has had a behavior that even before applying to become a committee member, I have addressed. One of the things that's really important about ethics is transparency, and that I have been very transparent and have gone through the process. And so even when Sam Gould was applying and went through the whole process, you know, I addressed it. I said, I have an issue with your behavior, but I'm still going to give you a chance, right? And hopefully you will act in a conduct that is becoming of a member of the committee. So when Sam Gould then unleashed another barrage of online comments towards a posting that I made online, I went to the city manager and I asked the city manager, because we don't have a code of ethics, what procedures does one follow? I thought that the best procedure was for me to go to the city manager and speak to him about it. And the city manager said that he would speak to him about it. From my understanding, that conversation did not happen because the city manager also did not have a code of ethics to be able to follow, so he didn't know how to even proceed in that sense. And so since the city manager couldn't move forward, then I took it upon myself to move forward and leave public comment in a committee about the behavior of Sam Gould. And that is the thing, is that, you know, if you are offended by what I said and what I did, unfortunately, even the interaction between you and I should have been limited if we had a code of ethics in place. But because we didn't have a code of ethics in place, you know, and I'm from Brooklyn, when someone tries to bully me, I fight back. I will fight back. And I would do so in agreement with everyone involved, because I have the reputation, I have the background that says that this is how I move. This is how I go about the world. Sam Gould, you are a white man. You are a white man who decided that you would leave discouraging and nasty comments towards a black man who is going through politics for the first time. And you thought it was okay. You thought it was okay. Now, what's interesting is that if I were a woman, that would still not be okay. If I were anybody else, it would still not be okay. As white men, you have power. You have power where you can do things, and you don't, sometimes society doesn't check you in that privilege. And so what is everyone supposed to do? I decided to defend myself, and I will do so anytime and every time someone attacks me. But first, I will go through the proper channels, and the proper channels did not work. The code of ethics, I agree with Rob Arias in the public comment, should be governed by an independent body, because at the core of the code of ethics should be a strive towards transparency and a strive towards anti-corruption. And the history of, we're called the rottenest city for a reason in the past, because the history of Emeryville as it relates to corruption demonstrates that without those checks and balances, then even the code of ethics can be used to advance corrupt practices. Like, for example, being okay with a lobbyist joining one of our committees when they directly affect the policy that would affect the policy of that committee. And so hopefully this body will consider what I believe what the public would want to see, which is an independent body that is able to determine how ethics violations are managed. Those are my comments.
Councilmember Mora.
It sounds like there's a strong majority on the council who supports adopting the code of ethics. Certainly as a first step, I think it makes a lot of sense. The code of ethics in front of us, it reads as quite reasonable. Nothing in it is that controversial. I like the edit proposed by Member Carr. So I would be prepared to support, at least let's take that first step and adopt this and see how things go. This will be the first time we've had something in place.
Are you willing to make a motion with that amendment?
Yes, I am. I just want to give an opportunity.
I will hold for comment. Yeah. So you're making a motion.
Yes, I'll make a motion to.
I second that motion.
Okay, so there's a motion to approve with an amendment to section D to remove the reference to mayor or and just have it say city council, correct?
Correct. There are two references to mayor, and we would just say shall confer with the city council as warranted, and then the city council may ask the city manager to investigate the allegation.
Okay, so that's your motion, and that is your second, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, Mayor.
Okay, Vice Mayor Welch.
I just wanted to note, as we're discussing behavior and engaging with one another, that there is a very big difference between being attacked and being corrected online when you are spreading misinformation, false data, misrepresenting information, especially about the city that you are representing. Someone coming and correcting false data is not being attacked. It's being corrected about your data. If you're incorrect, you're incorrect, and you have the freedom to then delete that comment or that post, but claiming that being corrected when you are spreading false information just isn't true. And as someone who has been attacked online, has been threatened with doxing, has been threatened with spreading disinformation purposely, I really find it very offensive for someone to claim that they are being attacked because they are misrepresenting information, claiming that the city has not done its due diligence on certain actions. So I just wanted to note that, and I would be ready to vote to pass this code of ethics.
Member Pryforce.
So one of the benefits of being a techie is being able to take screenshots of everything. And so what I'll do for the public is that I will take screenshots and post Sam Gould's comments and let the public decide for themselves whether or not they felt that his comments should be viewed as being offensive or even immature. And this is a little painful to share, but I'm also preparing to share this experience with the public. When I was running for this position, then council members Diane Martinez, Alan Medina, and our current council member who just spoke convinced me that signing a collegiality pledge would be a part of my experience as a future council member, the experience in and of itself, I am a resident, a constituent. I'm not council member yet. I'm not even on a committee of being convinced that this was a part of a process has been a very uncomfortable reality as soon as I discovered that others, including those who asked me to sign that document, had not done what I did. And I understand that Councilmember Mora also signed a document. He may not have an issue with it, but the most important thing is that I have an issue with it. And the response to it from Diane Martinez and others has been, well, you signed it. It's not a problem. It reminds me of the Me Too movement, where when someone is a victim and you tell them, well, you still went up to go meet up with that director, you still went to go meet with Harvey Weinstein. When you are in a position of power and you are able to manipulate my experience, when you're able to manipulate someone as I felt that I was, I think there are some people, at least one of the three, who have redeeming qualities, who I think is a good person because people tell me, well, they're a nice person, but they made a mistake when they did that. That's why it's difficult to reconcile and mediate, because I had an experience that I should have received an apology for. And then for members of my party to call me and tell me that I should apologize to this person because Brian Donahue, put out an article revealing what my experience was. And then for a state leader to call me and tell me that I should apologize simply because I shared that article about what happened to me. Wrapping up, this is why a code of ethics is important. And I hope that the code of ethics can not just be enacted when someone is currently in office, because in terms of the list of what was described as members, I believe that the code of ethics should. Now, I'm still going to vote towards the adoption. I believe that the code of ethics can grow and evolve, or maybe there needs to be a separate document for those who are running, and the way that council members interact with those who are running for office. That hopefully my experience won't be something that happens to other people. Simply put, no collegiality pledges, no pledges at all, actually, for someone who wants to be a council member, a mayor, a committee member. No one should be forced to sign something that they may not necessarily have that much knowledge about. No one should have that experience. And just as I am stood up to Sam Gould, I also stand up to the three of you, and I will continue to stand up for myself. And it hasn't stopped, and it won't stop until I have that apology. Thank you.
Are you done? I want to thank the city staff, and in particular the city attorney's office. I requested the item a year and a half ago, and we were delayed because we had a number of retirements from senior management at the City Hall office. This was referred to the Budget and Governance Committee, and the city manager retired last year, and we had an interim person until the beginning of this year, and we put it on the work agenda for the new staff. And I want to just thank John Kennedy and his team for putting this together. I'm going to keep my comments on this a very high level, which is the purpose of an ethics document and a code of conduct isn't to create the rules for a game. It is not intended to create winners and losers. It is intended to create mutual and self-accountability. It is intended to be a reminder to all of us about the privilege we hold in our capacities as elected officials, and for those members of our boards, committees, and commissions who we appoint to represent us and do the work that our constituents and our communities want. It is intended for us not just to sign our name to it. Nobody is being forced to sign by voting for it today. We are agreeing to sign it. It is intended for us to reflect upon and ask ourselves the question, if our conduct is becoming of the roles and the responsibilities we have. And I have heard a number of things this evening related to personal experiences, and I'm not going to weigh in on any of them, but to say that this is, as Councilmember Mora noted, this is the appropriate and best thing to do. My hope in having chaired the committee that worked on the options we had with the city attorney, worked alongside the vice mayor in helping flesh out something that would be more Emeryville specific and recognize the size of our city compared to some of the other things that happen in larger cities, was to reassure our community that there are standards here for how we conduct ourselves. My hope is that it is a tool to inform people, and it is not weaponized in a way that would make a joke out of the work we do here. I'm going to end my comments there because I think that a lot of words have been said this evening, but I really want to bring the focus back to why we're doing it and who is responsible for it being a successful document. And it is within ourselves that we need to be accountable. But when we lose sight of that, we have a collective responsibility as a body to remind each other of how we could be more accountable to one another in our community. There's a motion by Mora, and there's a second by Pryforce with an amendment to Section D in 2 places to remove the words mayor and to approve this item. Please call the roll.
Councilmember Carr?
Aye.
Councilmember Mora?
Aye.
Councilmember Pryforce?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Welch?
Aye.
And Mayor Bowders.
Aye. The resolution is approved. That brings us to item 12.2, which is an ad hoc committee recommendation for the naming of the new city park situated along Sherwin and at Hubbard Street. You're going to give the presentation?
Yeah, I'm just going to share some information.
Okay.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. The City Council on sorry, I missed my date here that I'm looking for.
Can you use the microphone, please?
Sorry
Thank you.
about that. Yeah. The City Council put together an ad hoc committee of 2 council members and 2 committee members of the Parks and Recreation Committee to select names that were submitted, over 90 names through the website and social media. While currently there is no naming process for a new park, there is a naming policy which aims to establish the procedure associated with naming and dedicating city facilities, which I wanted to share tonight, which the policy for general is the policy of the city is to name facilities in a manner that will provide an easy and recognizable reference for the city visitors. Therefore, naming options will always consider a name based on the facility geographic location. However, the policy also established conditions for consideration of naming options based on other factors. Geographic location. Whenever possible, all city facilities will be named for their geographic location. The geographic location may be based on the identification of the facility with a specific place, neighborhood, major street, regional area of the city or the city itself, if the facility is deemed to serve the entire community. Other considerations, consideration of names for facilities may also include a prominent form of topography, a prominent plant, bush, or tree, and historical precedent. So the ad hoc committee met and reviewed the names and narrowed it down to the top 5 names that they're recommending to the city council for discussion tonight, and to select the name of the newest park in Emeryville that would hopefully be opened on October 28th with the Harvest Festival in mind with that day.
Okay, and for the benefit of the public, do you have a slide or someone going to read for us the
Yes.
5 names and what their origins are so that the council can hear what the ad hoc heard?
Yes, we do. We're going to put it up here.
Okay.
Hope it'll be easier for the council to see. So the top names that were recommended.
Is this in a rank order, or is this just 5?
This is not in a rank order,
Okay.
and I should share also some other information that the committee did take creativity and also taking some names and wanting to make a recommendation to the council to consider that, for example, number 4, Railroad Park, originally was submitted with Sherwin Railroad Park, but the committee liked Railroad Park itself, so it was recommending just that name. Same thing with Hoken Hubbard Park. They had another name of another street in there, I believe. So those last 2 kind of had a partial of the name submitted that is being recommended to the council. And there's no particular order, but these were the 5 names they felt they wanted to recommend to the council to consider.
Does that conclude the staff presentation?
Yes.
Okay, before we take public comment, I would like to invite if the 2 members of the council who were on the ad hoc committee, which was Councilmember Mora and Vice Mayor Welch, do either of you wish to provide any additional information, not your opinions or your vote, but just information reporting out of the ad hoc committee on your discussions that you'd like to share before I call comment? Vice Mayor Welch, or I'll recognize Councilmember Mora. Okay.
I was just going to add just some background behind some of these names, because it might not be clear to folks seeing.
You didn't read the long packet report on this? Yes, it could be very questionable. So as someone who read it, I think it'd be beneficial if somebody would share why you picked these and what they are.
Yeah, I can take a stab at that. So Emery Green, there's the Emery building there. We're in Emeryville. There's on the other hand, there is already a park called, this is the Joseph Emery Skate Park. That's kind of a benign name there. Number 2 is the Huichin Park. So the Huichin people they were one of the last tribes to live there, Native American tribes. And then the Paintbrush Park references the Sherwin-Williams paint factory. Railroad Park, it's near the railroad. And then Hokan Hubbard Park, the Hokan language was spoken by the native people who inhabited the area. Hubbard, it's on Hubbard Street. Perhaps it's trying to do too much, but it brings together the geographic and the historical. So that's the background in a nutshell. And Vice Mayor Welch, feel free to add anything.
Vice Mayor.
No, I think thank you for that explanation. Just going into those details.
All right, so at this time I'm going to open it for public comment. A member of the public who wishes to comment on item 12.2 will have 2 minutes to do so. Are there any members present here? Please welcome Gail and come to the microphone, and you have 2 minutes. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Gail Tarantino, and I've resided at 1500 Park Ave in the Emeryville warehouse loft since June of 2000. And as a predecessor to the yet unnamed park, Joel Devon, who also lived and is no longer with us, created a modest refuge in front of the defunct Sherwin-Williams paint factory. A blighted area on the Sherwin Strip, Joel put much love and sweat into creating a mini park in a space that was neglected and overlooked. He planted grass, flowers, even a tiny pine tree, landscaped with rocks. He built a bench out of discarded wood. In conversation, neighbors referred to it as Joel's Park. Jennifer West, who was the mayor at the time, visited often with family and friends, and people from the neighborhood and beyond strolled and biked as a destination to experience and see the magic of what he created. A gathering place that cultivated community. It was a special gem of a park, and it feels appropriate to name it Joel's Park. I recognize that soliciting input from the community about the naming of the park was not intended as an authentically democratizing gesture. However, if the entries or votes for naming it Joel's Park were tallied, clearly it would be named in his honor. His efforts were acknowledged by the community then and now. The citizens of Emeryville noticed and have expressed wishes to remember Joel as a thank you for making a beautiful space and to his memory. Thank you, Joel Devon, the Joy Super Spreader, and a 21st century Johnny Appleseed, Joel's Park. Thank you, just for the record.
Thank you, Gail. Are there any other members here who wish to give comment? I'd like to recognize the speakers online who have their hands raised, Madam Clerk. I'd like to recognize Brian Donahue.
Okay, first I'd like to correct something that was spoken earlier that's incorrect. Rob Arias said he is the editor of Emeryville's longest online news source, and that's false. I am the editor of the Emeryville's longest online news source, and the name of that news source is the Emeryville Tattler. It's been extant since February of 2010. That's the longest online news source in Emeryville. Now going on to the naming of the park, I have to say the parameters, the guidelines for coming up with the names is extremely low-minded. I mean, just really disappointing. In America, starting in the progressive era and moving forward all the way into through the 1960s, there was a long and grand tradition of naming public edifices and parks and boulevards and what have you after civil rights leaders and labor leaders and that kind of thing to galvanize the people to try to make their nation, continue to make their nation a more perfect union. So that's a great tradition. That's what we should be shooting for, something like that, instead of the geography. I mean, it's really low-minded. And I think we should name, especially in the era of Trump, fascism is rising up, its ugly face. We should set ourselves aside and say, no, we value labor, we value, civil rights. And so we should continue the grand tradition starting in 100 years ago, going up to the 60s of naming parks after civil rights leaders, like Martin Luther King Park, or all kinds of other people, the more current people that have been in the city civic activists. And then barring that, I agree with the previous speaker. We should name it after Joel. Joel was a friend of mine, a really good person. Everything that woman said, I agree with.
Thank you for your comment.
Can't name it after something more high-minded. We should name it
Thank you
Joel's
for your
Park.
comment. Okay. Any other members of the public who wish to give comment? Okay, public comment. Do we have a card?
No,
Public
Mayor.
Comment is closed. We'll go for discussion. I'd like to open with a thought or two. First, I want to thank you, Gail, for coming today, and I want to thank you for honoring Joel's memory. As a partner of his and a dear friend of his in many ways, it's hard to lose a person at a very young age, as we did with him. And as somebody who lives adjacent to the park in the building next to you, he used to take his golf clubs down to the end of the street, and he had a big net he set up next to that railroad facility, and he would hit golf balls into it. And he had a taste for adventure art is what I would call it, what he set up along the street, along those K-rails. So I always appreciate not just people who are creative and toe the footprint of where we could go with that space, if you will. We all lived adjacent. I know Mary's here as well. We lived adjacent to it for many years as an abandoned paint factory, right? So I think the neighborhood's collective interest and joy in the opportunity, I only regret that he wasn't here to see the park be a park. And I know that you probably feel the same way. So thank you for being here. The policy we have here, the policies that are in place really are hyper-focused on geography. And when I read this agenda item and I did a review of all 90 so comments we received, and I did a look at what we did elsewhere. It's true, Christie Park is on Christie Avenue, Doyle Hollis Park is at Doyle and Hollis. We're very geography driven in some ways. And I think that there's some, and you see it even on here with the reference to Sherwin in parentheses and Hubbard in one of these suggestions. And I am not by any means criticizing the committee for its work. I just noticed that they followed kind of the goals and the rules on this. But I had two thoughts in reviewing the whole packet, and I just wanted to share them at the outset, and I'm open to obviously what all the other council members think. I have two thoughts. Of the list before us, the one I really welcome, and I appreciate the context that the submitters provided, was Huchin Park. That was actually the Ohloni's name for the land here, so it's actually geographically relevant. I think it speaks to there were a lot of suggestions about paintbrush and paint can park and the Sherwin-Williams logo. And I do think that the commenters, one of the comments that was made was, looking back at civil rights and labor and what are things that are kind of more historic. And Emeryville is so small of a place that's kind of hard to pick it, but I think that we make a mistake sometimes here. Right? We hold up Joseph Emery. Joseph Emery ran a quarry on Yerba Buena Island, and he built prisons. That's what Joseph Emery did. He ran a quarry that he used to build the San Francisco jail with. That was his business. And in 1924, the Sherwin-Williams Company came, and they purchased this huge 10.5-acre piece of land for this emulsion paint factory. There's a fascinating KQED story from about 10 years ago I read. And there were 425 sacred burial grounds for the Ohlone people in the Bay Area, and the largest one was in Emeryville. The largest one. It was almost 4 stories tall. It was 350 meters wide, and it was situated between where Bay Street is and the Sherwin-Williams property. And there's a photo of the Sherwin-Williams Company demolishing the shell mound that buried thousands of indigenous people from the Ohlone tribe. The Chochenyo-speaking Indians were actually the first people here, geographically, and their name for their land here was Huchin. And I can't think, in my mind, with no disrespect to any of the other submissions, I can't think of anything more appropriate to do in the absence of giving land back to the people it was taken from than to give it its history back and call it what it was called by the people who were here, as opposed to what Sherwin or Williams or Mr. Joseph Emery or any other person who operated a casino, a horse race track, a card room, a jockey club. Those are all the kind of fun things that happened in some ways through the rotten era of Emeryville. And it would be easy to look at that history and the geography associated with that. I live at Blue Star Corner HOA, which is a reference to the Blue Star Amusement Park, the first Greyhound racetrack, to use a mechanical rabbit in U.S. history. Right? There's a reference to that history. There's something valuable in this little tiny town with our history. And I just think that I asked the city staff, how did we name these other parks? And I learned that the city staff named them. That when parks were finished, the city just submitted them to the county engineer as complete and put geographic street names. Thank you so much for the information, Mr. Smalley. I learned that I was like, how did we come up with these other ones? It was just submitted by staff. So the value of taking this opportunity to really not just look back at what we kind of know as Emeryville, but what was the land? It was a burial ground. When we built Bay Street here, when Madison Marquette built Bay Street, hundreds of indigenous remains were found there. Most people don't know that the city has a contact with the Ohlone, a next of kin, and when we uncover an archaeological remnant, we have to stop all process, all construction stops, and we figure out what to do that is appropriate with the remains of that person. That happened with building the Greenway just north of the bike bridge. We found remains there. We find remains throughout much of this area because as much as Sherwin and Williams wanted to take and completely erase the Ohlone and their burial ground, they didn't do all of it. And we live with that. So my preference tonight, and I will hear from others, is I strongly suggest that we give the Ohlone people the name of their land. But I also, I'm not done, but I also think there are ways to see, there are opportunities and ways to recognize people today, right? It may not be that we can name the park after Joel, but my thought is someone who looks out the window, and as I did, and watched him play golf at the end of my street, there's a park bench they installed last week that looks at the garden, and I would love to put his name on a bench. I think that that is an appropriate human way of recognizing the human contributions of people and giving a lasting memory to somebody who is a well-liked person in our neighborhood, who people felt connected with, and putting him actually in a place where you have a space too. And you can go and see the beauty, the ever-changing beauty of an organic garden that he didn't get to see, but he imagined for all of us. So if the council will support my add-on tonight, I would like to, I'm gonna go ahead and put it on the table. I'd like to make a motion to name this park Huchin Park, and I'd like to instruct staff to take the first bench at the Emeryville Greenway South entrance and name it for Joel Devon. I will now accept other comment. I will recognize the Vice Mayor.
I was going to second, but
You may do that if you'd like.
I will second.
There's a motion and a second. Member Pryforce.
I have a comment. So I just want to say that I appreciate the mayor going over the history of Shell Mound, Bay Street, and some of the atrocities that have happened as it relates to place and history. So I just want to say I completely agree with you. Thank you for articulating that history, why it's important. At the last community services meeting, I talked about that I didn't grow up in a predominantly white environment, and I was a minority. I just didn't grow up that way. I grew up in an environment where it was mostly black and brown. And what that means is that when it comes to place, my childhood daycare center was Shirley Chisholm Daycare Center. And Shirley Chisholm represented my neighborhood in Congress and becoming the first black woman to run for president. My elementary school was George Washington Carver. And so I know everything about George Washington Carver. The park was called Crispus Attucks. Utica Avenue, we don't say Utica. If you're from Bed-Stuy, we say Malcolm X. I say that to say that either they were named after black and brown people, in terms of everywhere I went, every street, or the schools I attended, or they were named after abolitionists, people who actually worked to correct an egregious wrong. And so I am very supportive of the mayor's motion, and I love the idea of the park bench as well. And so it's a marriage of the two. And I think that this is one of those moments where we see a city council that really listens to its public and can empathize and connect with the public, and at the same time also look at things from a very big standpoint in terms of correcting historical wrongs. And so those are my comments.
Thank you. Are there others who wish to give comment? There's a motion by Mayor Bowders and a second by Vice Mayor Welch to name the new park situated along Sherwin at Hubbard Street, Huchin Park, and further to instruct staff to put a plaque on the first bench at the south entrance of the Emeryville Greenway, name it for Joel Devon. Please call the roll.
Councilmember Carr,
Aye.
Councilmember Mora,
Aye.
Councilmember Pryforce,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Welch,
Aye.
and Mayor Bowders.
Aye, it's approved, and I look forward to, hopefully staff were on time for, we are going to have the Harvest Festival on October 28th, and at that time, it will be at that park. Rebecca Sermeno and the Community Services team is gangbusters on getting an event plan for us. I want to thank her for that while I have her here. But we will also open the event by dedicating the park to the community. So I hope people will join us. I think, Rebecca, can I say it's 11 a.m.? You can say it's 11 a.m. Okay. It's 11 a.m. on October 28th. We have a lot of fun planned for everybody. We'll have more information at October council meetings. But we will formally dedicate the park's new name at that event to open the day. So thank you so much. We're almost done here. Item 13 is department head reports. Do we have any?
We don't, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, item 14 is future agenda items from council members. Do you have any future agenda requests? Do you have a future agenda request? I go ahead, Member Pryforce.
Oh, you sound like you were going to say something.
I don't want to preempt you because I know one of the two things you're going to ask, and I have good news for you. But go ahead.
Oh, cool. Okay. So one of them is that I was invited as a member of the. Since we are now a member of the National League of Cities, whoever helped make that happen, Mayor Bowders, if you helped make that happen, thank you for doing that.
You're welcome.
I've always been, I've always said that was, but I never said it because just busy. But I think it's a great idea. But as a member of the, as a representative of the city of Emeryville to the League of Cities, I was invited to join pretty much everyone who I saw in Sacramento, in Atlanta, to also represent Emeryville amongst the National League of Cities. And so I'd like to place on the future agenda item for that to be reviewed. In my communication with the city manager, he, because I don't have the actual numbers, but I think that will come later if that's taken up. But he wanted me to mention the hotel, travel.
It would be your hotel, travel, and registration.
Okay. Okay. Cool. Okay. So you guys thought. Okay. Yeah. So we're in registration. That would be a part of the cost, and so I wanted to share that as a future agenda item.
Okay. Is there a majority who agrees to calendar a request from Councilmember Pryforce to discuss covering the cost of his attendance at the National League of Cities Conference? There's a majority support. We'll agenda that item, please. Do you have another request?
Usually I do it at the end with the whole Pledge of Allegiance then, so I'll wait till you guys are done.
I have one agenda item. I received a request. Let me pull it up here. At the Emeryville hosted the Alameda County Mayor's Dinner a couple weeks ago. I want to give a special shout out while I have a chance to especially Pedro Jimenez and Rebecca Sermeno and Kim Burrows for all the work you did to help put on a fantastic meeting and dinner at the Emory. And support and thank you to the members of staff and council who were able to join us. And in that meeting, something that predates this current council was I supported a future agenda item in the past to support the efforts to right the wrongs of the Port Chicago 50. If you aren't familiar, it's a group of African-American members of the military who were wronged in a number of ways, dating back close to 100 years ago at a base in the Concord area. And we successfully campaigned to rename the regional park Thurgood Marshall Regional Park as the home of the Port Chicago 50. And there is now an effort underway to support the exoneration of them. They were wrongfully tried and convicted for things that were motivated by racial misconduct of superiors to theirs, and I'd like to have a resolution of support for their exoneration on the next council agenda if there is that, because the advocates working to exonerate and clear their names are asking for councils to do that, and I felt that would be something this council could support. Is there majority support to approve or to hear the resolution request? Okay, I'm seeing a majority of support, so that's okay. So we'll have that on the next, and I have that for you, so I can give that to staff. Okay, any other future agenda requests? Member Pryforce?
Future agenda item to add a discussion around bringing back the Pledge of Allegiance at City Council meetings, and I will demonstrate. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Are there 3 votes to agenda this item? Okay, seeing none. That brings us to item 15. Madam Clerk, the time is 8:34. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you all for coming.